Dave sighed deeply in the cramped car. He couldn't believe he had let Maddie talk him into taking this trip with her family. It was his first time camping. "Are you okay?" Maddie asked, nudging him in the ribs. Dave pulled one earphone away from his head. "What? Oh, I was just thinking," he replied. "Bet you can't wait to hike up Mount Timber," she teased. Dave rolled his eyes. He and Maddie had been friends since they were toddlers, but as they grew older, their interests couldn't have become more different. Maddie enjoyed outdoor activities. Dave was more of the artistic type. While she joined the hiking club at school, he had started a band. Right now, he would rather be jamming with his band instead of listening to their demo tapes on his headphones. Suddenly, a bright camera flash exploded in their faces. Maddie's brother Kerry was 1 year younger than Dave. He was a photography fanatic. Maddie's father, Dr. Alonzo, piped up from the front seat, "We're here. This is going to be a great weekend." Mrs. Alonzo turned around in the front seat and winked at Dave. "Yeah, Dave, cheer up," Maddie urged, patting Dave on the shoulder. Kerry turned to them again for another shot. "Look at the happy campers," joked Kerry, as the flash of his camera blinded Dave again. Great, thought Dave. This is just great. "All right, from here we go on foot," Dr. Alonzo declared, getting out of the car. He parked at the entrance to a trail that led into the woods and toward the mountain. They unloaded their gear and ascended the path to the campsite. Dave carried his knapsack, sleeping bag, tent, and a large food bag. After a while, he didn't know whether his arms or his legs would fall off first. They made camp in a clearing near a stone campfire pit. Dave pitched his tent between Maddie's and Kerry's. Dr. Alonzo cooked a stew over a crackling fire. After Dave helped the Alonzos clean the pots, he suddenly felt sleepy and staggered to his tent. He mumbled a weak, "Good night, everyone." In the morning, Maddie called Dave 3 times before he woke up. He pulled on his hiking boots and stuffed his tape player into his jacket. He joined the others in time to grab a muffin on their way out to the hike. The morning sun drenched the trail in a curtain of golden light as the group hiked toward the mountain's peak. Soft pine needles under their feet gave way to a rocky surface. The air became colder and the sky seemed a brighter blue, as if they were walking high enough to touch it. At the top of the mountain, everyone dropped their knapsacks and scoped out the sights. At this altitude, they could see a river gleaming far below like a silver snake in the sun. Dr. Alonzo issued a challenge. "On our way down to the river, I want everyone to start being a spectator, observing the natural sights around them. Maybe we can learn from the different ways people see their surroundings." "This is why I brought my camera," Kerry said. He was already snapping pictures as they started their descent to the river. At a small clearing in the foliage, Dave sat on a rock to tie his shoes as the Alonzos hiked past him, disappearing around a bend. He looked around to see what he could observe to fulfill Dr. Alonzo's challenge. Dave continued to hike, but soon came to a point where the path branched in 3 directions. "Great," he muttered. "Now what do I do?" He stopped and turned around, listening for the Alonzos in all directions. Instead, he heard the active chatter of animals in the forest. It sounded like an orchestra tuning up before a concert. The wind in the pine trees whispered like an audience before the curtain opens. A lone bird's cry of "Here! Here!" echoed down to him from above. Dave looked up into the branches and saw a hawk swoop down and land in a nest. Just then, Dave picked out the sound of rushing water. It had been there all along, part of the medley of forest noises, but Dave had just noticed it. Realizing he was no longer lost, Dave set off down the path that led toward the river noise. The river grew louder with each step. In 15 minutes, Dave emerged from the trees at the riverbank just as all 4 Alonzos were wading into the water. As they cast their fishing lines, Dave sat as still as a stone, concentrating. The rippling sounds of the river splashing over rocks filled the air. Another hawk screeched from above. Dave stood up. Like a fan at a rock concert, he listened. Taking his tape recorder out of his pocket, he pressed record. Later that day, everyone sat around the campfire snacking on what Dave had to admit were delicious trail mix food rations. They checked out Carrie's pictures on his camera. Maddie laid out her favorite sketches. Mrs. Alonzo recited a poem she had written about the flowers that had caught her eye. Then, to everyone's surprise, Dave pulled out the tape recorder. He played the fluid noises of the river, splashing and tinkling on the shore. Maddie put her ear to the player to hear the sharp call of the hawk that had wheeled overhead while they were fishing. Then there was the sound of the wind in the pine trees as the group had headed back to camp. A slow smile spread across Maddie's face. Dave smiled, a little embarrassed, as the recorder clicked to a stop. "Well, Dave," said Dr. Alonzo, "your observations are most impressive." Dave's grin grew broader when Maddie said, "I knew you'd learn to love it out here, Dave." "It just took me a while to finally hear the music," Dave said. He closed his eyes to listen.